I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with the cattle market summary for the week ending August 10th, where your farmer feeders pretty much dominated things in your feeder cattle market this week. You know, they are looking around, the corn's made, even though it's been really dry in some spots in the Midwest. For the most part, got an outstanding crop again, going to be near records and setting some records on some data from the crop, it looks like already. But they're looking around. They know there's going to be plenty of corn. It's not going to be worth much. Most of them have made more money feeding cattle the last few years than they have row cropping, so they're going to go right back to what works. And they got very aggressive, and a lot of times we talk about walking the corn to town, and that's what they mean by that is just feeding it to the cattle, trying to add value to their corn by feeding it to the cattle. And I'm not talking about farmer feeders that grow corn and then buy cattle and put them in a commercial feedlot. These are the guys that have the facilities on the farm, got their own pen. A lot of times it's just one pen and a load and shoot, but it's guys that are doing it themselves, and it's unbelievable how cheap the cost of gains are said to be. Now, I'm sure a lot of them are not figuring opportunity costs on the corn. Whenever they are figuring those costs of gains, some of them may not figure the corn to be worth anything at all, but they can do it cheap, and it's unbelievably cheap. But a lot of them are working. They know how to work the risk management. A lot of them coming into this week had dropped their long hedges. They knew they were going to be buying cattle this time of year, getting close to harvest here, and they'd done a hedge on buying cattle this time of year. A lot of those picked up quite a bit of money, so that was a little bit more cash that they had on hand to bid those cattle up. And a lot of them just raise their hand till the auctioneer calls their name out anyway, so it wasn't going to stop them. But I tell you what, it's unbelievable what some of the prices were in some of your big sales, especially up in the Midwest. But those guys were even coming down into Oklahoma and Kansas and places to get their hands on some long yearling cattle, which are quickly drying up. And every day the percentage of receipts is getting more calves all the time until we get into the fall, and then it'll be almost all calves. And let's look at the board for last week. October live cattle, which is the heaviest played there. Monday was down 45, Tuesday down 62, Wednesday up just 7 cents, Thursday down $1.95, Friday up 20 cents to end the week with October live cattle at 109 and a quarter, down 275 for the week. Stiff losses on your CME cattle board this week on both fats and feeders. Your August spot live cattle market 108 and a quarter, down 242 for the week, and we knew we weren't going to be able to hold on to that $1.14 that we had the previous week with the board not helping any more than that. But October feeder cattle, Monday was down 75 cents, Tuesday down 277, Wednesday up 47 cents, Thursday down 77 cents, and Friday up 27 cents to end the week with October feeder cattle at 149.47, down $3.55 for the week. August spot feeders 149.90, down 295 for the week. Your fats through Thursday, we had some decent volume, mostly in the northern plains, which they were a little bit backed up. 67,200 head through Thursday. Was herky-jerky sales from anywhere on live basis from 109 to 113, depending on what day it was and how much lower the board was. But your weighted average through Thursday was 111.11, and that turned out to be where the bulk of the sales were on Friday. But dress sales through Thursday 174 to 179, with your weighted average just under 176 through Thursday now. Then Friday afternoon, then you had the southern plains and then the rest of the cattle from the northern plains that hadn't sold. So we're going to see a huge volume once again this last week, and we are working through these cattle, and every day that goes by we're getting closer to smaller show lists and lighter supplies, and in turn probably a lot more leverage and a better market. It could be 6 weeks away, or it could be longer than that, but we're getting there. Like I said, every day gets a little bit closer. But Friday afternoon, your southern plains sold at 111. $3 lower, and then of course had some more cleanup sales in the northern plains and Colorado and places like that. But it's going to be a big volume week once they get all the numbers put together on the reports that come out Monday. Box beef cutout values, the average trade for last week, $205.91 on choice, up 165. Select cuts 198.31, up 68 cents compared to the weighted average from the previous week. And the choice select spread on the average of last week's trade was $7.60. Slaughter was good, 645,000, really good heavy slaughter, fast change speeds. That was 19,000 more than the previous week and 9,000 more than the same week a year ago. Now, the big story late in the week was a USDA crop report come out, and it just sent the grains plummeting on Friday. Now, you would have thought that would have helped the feeder cattle out. Yeah, a quarter or 27 cents on your October, but it just can't seem to get anybody behind your cattle board to make it have any support at all. But grains were down hard because that report come out. It improved the corn yield estimates for this year's crop. Your average bushel per acre increased to 178.5 on your estimate. That's an all-time record. We just keep breaking records on this corn. The technology has gotten so good with these hybrids and this seed breeding and all this. We've got this corn where it's you know, Roundup ready, it's drought proof. I mean, you just can't hardly mess up. And every year they make it where you can grow more bushels to the acre. And remember, they never make it where you can have less acres to the cow. Now that's good for your cattle people. I know it's tough, but it's good because it keeps your cattle prices up there pretty well. But your corn yield estimates, 178.5 bushels to the acre is what they're guessing on this year's crop. That's an increase of 4.4 bushels to the acre, just over the estimate that they had last month. So very, very bearish on your corn market. Your bean yield estimates, 51.6 bushels to the acre. That improves 3.1 bushels compared to last month's estimates. Your Chicago Board of Trade corn contracts were down 11.5 cents on Friday. Beans were down 42.25 cents, and that's really tough on your. But you know, you look at your farmer feeders. They kind of knew that was coming, and that's another reason they got so aggressive on buying feeder cattle this last week. So with the board down as hard as it was, fats trading lower and everything, your cash feeder cattle, feeder steers $2 to $5 higher, fully that way everywhere on your true yearling feeders. Feeder heifers not quite as much because the farmer feeders are not as aggressive on the heifers. Now a lot of them do feed heifers, but the main thing that they want those cattle for is to get rid of their corn, to add value to their corn. You can force a lot more of it down those steers than you can the heifers. They'll make those steers weigh 1,700 pounds. You can't, the heifers will quit you before that. They get overdone quicker, and you can't do that. So predominantly your farmer feeders are wanting to buy yearling feeder steers. Your shipped in calf market, your southeastern calves were closer to steady. Had a few of them steadied a little bit higher, but it's hot and not a lot of cattle really moving right now as far as your light calves being shipped in, and just not enough good tests yet of your local steers in the central parts of the country to get a test of the market. But that is quickly changing. Like I said earlier, every week a larger percentage of the receipts are calves. But let's look at some of these big Nebraska sales, and that's all I'm going to give you. And I know that may not be the true market. Your 8-weight steers on the average, the rest of the country is still bringing about a 150. Your index levels are either side of 150, bouncing around there every day. That's based on an 800-pound steer. But look and see what some of these markets can get for cattle where you got a lot of farmer feeder interest. Burwell, Nebraska had their barbecue special on Friday there, 3,300 head. The cattle were just outstanding as always in the sand hills there. That's just the way, the kind of cattle they have. And a lot of featured consignments there, including the Syntex steers. 220 head of steers weighed 880 pounds at 157. Erickson, Nebraska, 2,100 head on Saturday. And if you look at that had more 9-weight cattle than they did anything. You look at all those 9-weight cattle together, there were 736 head of 9-weight steers, averaging 962 pounds at 147.87, averaging over 950, guys. That's amazing. And then an individual quote on Cattle Market Central, you look right here, Crawford Livestock, Crawford, Nebraska, 120 head of 942 pound steers and one drag there at 150 1/4. That's a look at your week's markets from a Home TV auction office here in Canyon, Texas. We'll talk to you next week.